Thank you.
Now, this is one of the many alleged failed contracts that has now come to the light of day. It's been awarded across the state. How can fraud end in the system?
Thank you very much. I think fraud is not so peculiar to Nigeria, but it's the way we handle it. Over the year, there has been a very persistent phenomenon in Nigeria that we know that most public funds have gone through this challenge. I can tell you, since the beginning of this democratic dispensation, we've got different type of procurement law that if we enhance strictly to this law, corruption will be BRS minimum. For example, there are companies that are qualified for a particular job, and there are procedures. In those procedures, for example, there must be a technical evaluation, public procurement, open tender, technical evaluation, financial evaluation, qualification of all these companies, company with a tested experience. All this, if we by all means go by the law, and I can tell you over 90% of our corruption cases will not happen. But because somehow people try to say, I know the person, you know that person, and the law adjusts it, and that is why we have this problem. But I think just by and large, the best way for us to tackle this is to look at our procurement law, and every purchase and every contract has to go through what we call due process.
But if we have some of these processes, it is known, at least in this system, nobody is a stranger to what the right procedure is. Why do we, does anyone even check? Who's responsible for checking and making sure that people follow the due process?
Yeah, you see, the success of different ministry, different government, even state government, different local government, you will say that it has something to do with the person on the top. This thing does not happen in every of the ministries. Neither will it happen, depend on that individual, his value. When you see that, I can tell you, in 2003, when this due processing was introduced, and strictly, most of the NDA ministry strictly adhered to the due process. You can see that you can scarcely see any abandoned contract at that time. I think if, as the government have reviewed this procurement law over and over and over again, this procedure is a very long procedure, but very short in terms of implementation. If we go by it, I can tell you the corruption will be totally eliminated. But when you give a wrong company the right contract for a wrong purpose, then that is what we see.
Now, how can we make the process more transparent such that regular people who are interested in the affairs of government and affairs in things that matter to them as citizens, how can they follow up? So if you have many eyes watching, perhaps these things won't go unnoticed.
Yeah, if you see the procurement law, it's not just within the ministry. For example, if something has something to do with engineering, a member of Nigerian Society of Engineers should have to be part of that tender board. In the private sector, the NGO, and others are, even when when tender are being opened, they witness it, and the law allow all the participants, even the general public, to check the procedure. But you know, Nigeria, there is always what we call the Nigerian way of doing things, when people try to circumvent law for their own purpose, for their own interests. And I think it's about enforcement. Everything in Nigeria is about enforcement. If we don't enforce the law and enforce this procedure, that every ministry should go through this procedure from local government to state government, we don't experience this. when it comes to some of these international organizations operating in Nigeria, we don't want to mention them. They are using the same procedure that the federal government has adopted. And there are some of the federal government agencies strictly using this same procedure as working for them. Quietly, can you see some of these organizations having abandoned projects? Can you see any of their projects being probed because they are delivered on time? And then one of those things that allow this is that Nigerian, many people, because they know who is there, collect jobs that they don't do. That is what we hear. Secondly, if everyone are paid on time, because some of those government too, you work for some government agencies and then you may not be paid for the next 3 years. Okay? But when you are going for a contract that you are sure you won't be paid for 10 years, for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, people arm themselves. When you are working in an environment where the interest rate is in the upward of over 25%, and you know you're doing a contract and nobody will pay you for the next 1 year, and then you see people try to do what is not right.
So government should, do better, pretty much. At the end of the day, it falls on the desk of the government.
Exactly.
Right.
If you are doing a contract and you need to be paid in 2 weeks, and you are paid in 2 weeks, the competition will be high, and then the right people will come for it.
All right.